Okay, I'm waiting for somebody to get back to me. So, uh, let's do another question. Um, I said the cute night thing, right? Cute night would be fun. Let's do that sometime. Um, Kelso wants me to play any visual novel so I can listen to you voice act. You don't want that. You don't want that. I'm telling you, you don't want that. Um, but actually, a Hanako visual novel would be super cool. So either Cute Night or fuck, I can't remember what it's called. Something Cauldron. The new one about high school and detectives and magic and evil henchmen. What was that? What's that game called? Um, Black Closet, not Cauldron. Black Closet. I really want to get Jamie on here to to play Black Closet with me. Eve White is pointing out that my Space Wolves voice acting was amazing, which is true. So yeah, maybe I should give voice acting another try. All right. Adam Prime's trying to tell me more about how Ori and the Blind Forest worked. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I got it as much as I'm going to get it. Doesn't it seem like Ori dies, Foxdash? Doesn't it seem like Ori dies at the end of every level? I think that's the reason why we didn't expect him to be dead at the very end. Yeah, that's 100% true. I mean, at the end of each third of the game, there's a confrontation with Kuro, and it gets more and more dramatic every time. And then you fall a long way, and you hit the ground. And at the end of hitting the ground, you just sort of lay there for a while. And then eventually you get back up and you start jumping around. And that's exactly what happened. Like I mean, that literally happened. We fell and we hit the ground and we didn't get up for a while. And then we did get up and then we walked around and then Kuro came back. And I guess just sort of like picked Ori up and tossed her away. I did not expect her to be dead. I did not expect Ori to be dead at the very end. But it also doesn't shock me. I mean, like, there was enough going on that it's like, oh, she died? Oh, okay, I guess so. The game doesn't dwell on it, though, which is fine. There's other stuff going on for it to dwell on. I think the idea that it focuses on, it focuses on the like new life, the bird, the owl hatching, rather than focusing on the fact that Ori's dead. That makes sense to me. That seems fitting. All right, here's a great question. What would you change in Ori to turn the game into a turn-based strategy game? I mean, okay. So there are parts of it that are almost halfway there. There are parts of it that feel almost turn-based, where you're in a safe spot. The game gives you a safe spot. And shows you a little bit where you have to go. Sometimes it doesn't show you the whole thing, but oftentimes it shows you quite a bit. It shows you, like, here's the challenge that you have to overcome. Like, you know, I'm thinking about, for example, I mean, okay, so a great example is any of the areas where you had to like cling to a wall and then power jump horizontally onto the next platform or ledge or whatever. Like, that was super that was very straightforward. That felt almost turn-based. That was a like, okay, wait here, figure out what you're gonna do, aim, hit the button, and go. And then there were then I'm thinking about like the one where there was this like fire laser that shot out both ends, and it was spinning around in the middle, and there were there was a series of platforms on either side of it that I had to like jump up onto in a way that like I wouldn't get hit by the fire beams as they passed by. And that was kind of like, you stand in this safe space and you can see like what you're going to have to do, and you can sort of like plan for it. You can put together a whole sequence of moves that you're going to do to like jump around and get to where you need to go. And then you execute that. It's basically a matter of like preparing what is the sequence that you're going to perform, and then execute it. And if you do it right, it'll get you to another safe spot. So that there's almost something turn-based about that, right? I can imagine a game that was about starting here, seeing where you need to go, seeing what's in between, laying out a sequence of actions that is going to take you there. But it's not very strategic. And the game, I mean, Ori is fundamentally not super strategic. The strategy comes from trade-offs between energy and life. I mean, deciding how often you're going to save versus how much energy you want to have. Using energy in places can get you more life. So can defeating enemies. So are you going to try to slip by enemies and potentially take a little damage? Or are you going to fight them and possibly get health back? And then how much exploration are you going to do? Are you going to head straight for the next objective? Or are you going to wander around and use up the resource of time in order to get a return in terms of like additional stats? And then I guess when you level up, that's not really strategic though. I mean, like, you're choosing abilities along these three paths, but all of the abilities are I don't know, that doesn't feel like a super strategic choice. I guess it's strategic in that you want to choose abilities that are going to resonate with the strategic choices that you're making in gameplay. So if your strategic choices are to fight enemies and get health back from them rather than trying to get around them, then taking abilities in the red fighting track makes sense. And vice versa. If you take those abilities, then that improves the optimization, I guess, of fighting enemies more. So making the game more strategic is kind of a challenge. I guess I would use the systems that it already has. And maybe put resources into okay, so there's an element of the game that is you're jumping around, you're platforming, you're trying to maneuver through space. And you can go out of your way in order to pick up items that either give you back health or give you back energy, which are things that you optionally have to spend in order to continue progressing through the game. So I would just take that cycle and make it tighter. And I would say that, every turn, when you put together a sequence of moves that are going to get you through an area, you are making choices about where you're going to go out of your way to try to get different power-ups, because you are spending that power on a much smaller scale. It's not just like, if I want to save, then I'm going to use a little bit of energy. It's like, it actually costs energy for me to jump or to use special abilities. And so if I'm going to use those special abilities, I need to go out of my way to collect more energy, or else I lose the ability to do that. I don't know if that would work. But possibly that's probably the first thing I would do to try to make this turn-based and strategic. It's really the strategic part that I'm finding is difficult. I mean, a lot of what's fun about the game is in its the twitchiness of it, I guess, and that doesn't translate well into a turn-based game. So you would have to take that twitchiness and somehow like figure out how to make it interesting, to make choices, to figure out like what do you do that's interesting instead. Okay. Oh, sorry guys. I'm sorry I'm so distracted. Okay. There's another question. Somebody put in a question at the end. What do you think about the cultural references to Japanese-style Shinto in the storyline? Oh, God, that's a great question. Reminds me of anime-style cartoons like Avatar that are not actually produced by Japanese studios. Is this the latest iteration of Western fascination with Japanese pop culture? I'm thinking the pop music theme of the 1980s, like I Think I'm Turning Japanese, or Domo Arigato, Mr. Roboto. I mean, yeah, I do think that that sort of Eastern fetishism that is, there's a it's exoticism, right? That kind of what was the term my sister used? Cultural colonialism? I don't remember if that's it. But that there is an exotic fascination with Eastern cultures, especially because there's they're different enough from traditional Western culture that people can like really get fascinated by that and want to appropriate it, want to incorporate it into familiar things, homegrown objects. And I think that, I mean, so the pop music in the 1980s, I can't claim that I have a lot of insight into that, or even that I can like really speak to that in a big way. But I do think that a lot of that fascination is finding its way through anime and maybe manga to a lesser extent, but not really. It's really anime and anime style characters in like webcomics. Avatar is a fantastic example of something that really adopts an aesthetic that is borrowed from that a different culture, and doesn't really acknowledge that in a significant way, or the fact that it's not actually produced, it's not a product of that culture, it's just sort of appropriating that culture. Follow-up: is this appropriation that is okay in the terms of cultural melting pot, or is it something we should think critically about? I think that it has the potential to be both. I think that it's worth thinking critically about, even if we ultimately accept it as something that is worthwhile. Part of what you have to sort of recognize and keep in mind is that these aren't black and white issues. Something can be an example of cultural appropriation and also a fantastic TV series or a brilliant video game that we love and want to have and have be a part of our culture and part of our identity. And it can even be there can be some level, I think, of cultural appropriation that happens, that is like well-intentioned. Cultural melting pot, I think, is a really interesting phrase, and it's it suggests an ideal that I don't know if it exists anymore in the same way that it did. I don't even know when that phrase sort of came into popularity, but this idea that America is or the United States are divested of responsibility for how they treat the people and works of other cultures, because it's a land of opportunity. It's a land where all cultures come together and mix, and that is of some kind of a net benefit to mankind. And I think that's a beautiful ideal, and I don't think that it's wrong. I don't think that it is exactly reflective of our society or our culture in the United States today, but I do think that you can take something. It's true. There's a lot of like Shinto influence, and that feels a little weird to talk about it that way, to think about it that way. But at the same time, I don't object to taking that idea that there are spirits in trees that are, somehow tied to the natural landscape. I don't think that telling that story is necessarily inappropriate. I don't feel like, I think it's possible to take that, or to take the art style that Avatar takes, and the issue with cultural appropriation is twofold in my mind. One, it has to do with respect. It has to do with are you taking something from another culture that isn't authentic to you, and treating it poorly, treating it in a way that somebody who actually has a heritage with that object would find offensive or inappropriate. So there's that. And then are you taking something that belongs to someone and through your use of it diminishing what they have? Does the appropriation of anime to create a show like Avatar, does the appropriation of Shinto religion or Japanese words to fill out the narrative of Ori and the Blind Forest, do those acts diminish the perception or the understanding or the relationship between American people and the actually Shinto people or actually actual anime, and that's tricky. That's complicated. I mean, I think that you can look at that and you can sort of decide that no, it doesn't. And is that because these works take those ideas and treat them respectfully, and therefore it doesn't diminish the originals? Is it because these are high quality works that people love and celebrate, and therefore that means that it doesn't diminish the original? Or maybe it does. Maybe the fact that like now we have anime that's being produced in the United States, and therefore people value the anime that is original, that comes from Japan, that has a long tradition in that culture. People value that less because they're more familiar with it, or they think that it can be replicated. And then that is problematic. But again, just because it's problematic doesn't mean that it's bad. And just because we should think critically about it doesn't mean that we can't also enjoy it. So, yeah. One opinionated, respectfulness should be in the forefront, because once the cultural appropriation devolves into mockery, it's hurtful to everybody. That's absolutely true, and that's a problem. All right, okay, I need to take another short break, and then I will come back and do a couple questions of AMA. I feel bad, guys, because I keep disappearing. I'm not going to be able to get through all of the questions people put up on the AMA, but maybe we'll do more of that some other time, because I appreciate that there are questions, and I apologize for how weird tonight is being, but I'll be back in just a few minutes.